I'm the chair of Strafford Regional Planning, and I'm selectman in Rollinsford. So why don't we go around counterclockwise and introduce yourself and who you're affiliated with.
Stephen Jeffrey, Barrington.
Dirk Grotenheis with Nottingham.
Ed Comeau, Brookfield.
Leah Stevens, Rochester.
Lou Vita, Middleton.
Sandy Keynes, Rochester.
Brad Nichols, Coast.
Tom Clark, Dover.
Tony McManus, new kid on the block from Dover.
Bob Jaff in Rochester.
Brian Tapscott, Somersworth.
Tom Crosby, Mabry.
Tammy Budd, SRPC in Rochester.
Cynthia Copeland, Strafford Regional.
Dave Smith, Bureau Turnpikes, Assistant Administrator.
And I'm Chris Waschuk, the Administrator of Turnpikes.
Mark Ambrosi, Strafford Regional Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you and welcome everyone. Maryland, Staff Communications.
Okay, well, I just want to let everyone know that we're currently recruiting for our summer internship, and Dan and I are in the process of interviewing right now. And these interns would be working on traffic counts and culvert assessments and any projects that staff may need help with. Is that right, Dan? Anything else? Yep. And I also wanted to mention that to the commissioners and all that our annual meeting this year is going to be on Thursday, May 31st. It's going to be held at the Three Chimneys Inn in Durham. And this year we're doing something a little different. Instead of having it in the evening, we're going to have it at noon time. And more details will be coming shortly on that. And also, at that meeting, the commissioners will be approving the slate of officers and members of the executive committee. And right now, we're looking for 2 volunteers for our executive committee. The only thing is that we generally ask is that a commissioner's been with the commission for at least a year. Am I correct, Cynthia, on that? So if you are interested or have any questions about that, please contact Cynthia and she'll be able to answer any questions or anything on that. And that's all I have.
Could you expound a little on what the duties of the member would be?
I'll defer that to Cynthia.
Yeah, I did. So the executive committee serves once a month, and it's right before this meeting, and it's approximately an hour. There's 3 officers, the chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer, and then there's 4 other members, and they are the body that supervises me as the executive director, or whomever the executive director would be. And we go over the financial and business policy aspects of the organization. And so we look at the financial reports. I give a report on issues and concerns that we have. We talk about our relationships with communities and with our grantors. And so it's pretty much focused on the business of the organization. And then some larger policy issues that have to do with personnel that would be in our employee handbook.
Thank you.
Do we anticipate that they must be from a community that's a dues paying?
Yes, it should be from a dues paid community in order to vote. So without meaning that, if you look at our bylaws, voting not at the policy committee but at the commission is from a community that pays due. And I have 2 other things right now, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I would like to introduce Tammy Budd, who is our new finance manager, and she has over 18 years in the corporate world and comes to us with an MBA in financial and business management. And so I think that says something about where we are as an organization, that I feel we're ready and need this to run our organization as efficiently as we possibly can. So Tammy's a real expert in Excel and Access, and is going to be going in and doing flow charts and Gantt charts and all of that to get us organized and to track projects and keep us on time and on budget. So it's really important, plus reimbursing every month for our cash reimbursables. And the last thing I'd like to say is today's a really important day in New England. So it's the 100th anniversary of Fenway Park, And I hope that you all get your caps out and watch the game this evening. It's not just the first Yankees game, but it's also the 100th anniversary, and I know pretty much everybody in this room has really special memories about Fenway Park and games you've been to, and so celebrate it and enjoy it the whole weekend. But today's a really special day, April 20th, 1912, 100 years, and so go Red Sox, and I'm a fan, and let's enjoy it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Moving on, item 3, our guest speaker, and Mark will introduce Chris. So,
All right. Today we have the pleasure of having a presentation from the Administrator Bureau of Turnpikes at DOT, Chris Waschak. That should be an interesting opportunity and good learning experience for everybody here.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Mark. I know there's been a lot of questions about the Newington-Dover project and how that's moving along and how does that fit into the overall turnpike system. So Mark and Cynthia asked me if I would come to one of the meetings here and try to explain where the Newington-Dover project is. Kind of talk a little bit about the funding history, how it's evolved, because at one time it had federal aid, moved to the turnpike program, and then now it's back to the turnpike program, but it has some federal aid that's been earmarked for the project. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk a little bit about the schedule. I asked Keith Coder if he could attend, because right now he's the project manager for the project, but he had a conflict. But I do know quite a bit of history because I was a chief project manager before becoming the turnpike administrator a couple of years ago. So I've kind of been able to kind of guide this project through the development process. So I do know and privy to the history and how this project evolved. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. But I also want to start with providing everyone a better understanding of the turnpike system. So I do have a presentation, and I'll go through it about 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so. If you have any questions, as I'm going through it, don't hesitate to stop and ask on a certain aspect. The only thing that I've really handed out is it's off the Newington-Dover website, and that is the latest schedule for the project that is posted. There are some minor adjustments that I'll talk about, but that is the latest schedule that is online and being progressed at this time. So if you bear with me, and I think there are some copies being made of the presentation. And it was a beautiful morning traveling up here this morning from Hooksett in the Concord area. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the program, the entire capital program, and also to provide people here a better understanding of the turnpike system. And I'll leave this with the group so that you folks can have this for reference in the future. The turnpike system is, in essence, the turnpike is part of the DOT in New Hampshire. In other locations nationally, there are separate turnpike systems. They're separate authorities. They don't fall under the DOT per se. They may report to a board, but in New Hampshire, the turnpike system reports to the commissioner, and then the commissioner needs to, report to the legislature for budget elements, and then governor council for all contracts. And any kind of toll increase also would fall under the Governor Council's purview. We have 3 segments, 89 miles long. Blue Star goes state line to state line, from the Mass to Maine state line along 95. The Spalding starts at the Portsmouth Circle. It extends all the way up to exit 19 in Milton. So it goes all the way through the Newington, Dover, Rochester areas. And then the Central Turnpike really starts at the state line in Nashua. It's the Everett, and then extends, meets up with 93. It's co-joined with 93 going through Hooksett all the way to Concord, and basically ends at Concord at exit 14. So those are kind of the three segments. We have 166 bridges, 21 on the red list. I will tell you that after this current capital program is finished, we will have addressed all our red list bridges, which in comparison to the rest of the DOT and also municipalities is a great accomplishment, because bridges are a major focus. When a bridge is on a red list, it means it's structurally deficient. There are some things that need to be addressed on the bridge, and that's usually a major expenditure item. So the Turnpike system is really focusing on our bridges. We have 10 toll facilities. It's an enterprise fund. What I mean by that is all the money generated on the Turnpike system needs to be expended on the Turnpike system. There is really there's no diversion of funds. We can't use Turnpike revenue up in the North Country somewhere. It really needs to be used on the system as defined by the legislature. The legislature is responsible for defining what's part of the system. The revenue pays for operating and maintenance costs, debt service. I mean, right now we have roughly $360 million of outstanding bonds that have been used to construct the system, have been used for capital improvements to the system. R&R work, I'll talk a little bit about that. And then other capital improvements. Those capital improvements are such as the Rochester project on the Spalding, the Newington Dover project. Those are the capital improvements I'm talking about. And in terms of revenue in fiscal year 11, and we fall into the state fiscal year, fiscal year 11 we had 109 million transactions on the system, generated $117 million of toll revenue. This is a little bit about our traffic and what has happened over the last 5-6 years. In essence, traffic peaked in 2007, and it's fallen off for a number of reasons. In 8, we had the higher gas prices come in. That had an impact on traffic. People started driving a little bit less. Then we had the recession in 9, and you can see that traffic is starting to rebound here. It's a little higher than it was in 09. But it's fairly flat. It still hasn't come back to the peak. I know when I was the project manager of the Newington Dover project, and we were doing the environmental impact statement, and we're talking about traffic growth, daily we had issues with congestion at what was called the General Sullivan Bridge, the Little Bay Bridges. I don't believe that congestion is as bad today. I think the traffic is less than it was back about 4 or 5 years ago today. However, it hasn't gone away. It's still at capacity at that location, and that's why we have a project to address that. I fully expect as the economy rebounds, traffic will come back. But I think on the Spalding, I think we have we're making major investments to address that. On the bottom graphic here, it just shows our kind of traffic on a monthly basis, and you can see that basically July and August traffic is almost twice as what it is in March and April. February is our actual low period. So right now, yes, sir.
Do you have traffic counts on 125?
I do not.
I think traffic is shifting from the toll roads and coming up 125 and picking up in Rochester and going north.
I will tell you, we don't have, we're not doing that kind of close comparison. I know that as part of the Newington Dover project, there was a lot of concern about Dover Point Road. I mean, right there's that road that peels off, and the city of Dover has been talking about, diversion, people using that road to avoid the tolls. So we did a graphic that showed how traffic growth on the different corridors, because really we had a counter on the Little Bay Bridges, we knew how much traffic was on Route 4, we had a counter, we knew how much traffic was going through the tolls, and we had a counter on Dover Point Road. So all three of those pieces were coming through the one piece over the Little Bay Bridges. And we plotted each one of those out. Although people think people are avoiding the tolls, it's too convenient and easy to stay on the system. There are some people, I'm not saying that 100% of the people stay on the system, but people may use the other roads because it may be more convenient for them. There may be a business that they want to visit. I'm not saying that 100% of the people do that. I mean, there may be a small percentage that do not want to pay the toll and avoid the toll. What I'm saying is the vast majority stay in the system. And the graphic was showing that traffic was growing on the Spalding Turnpike, and basically traffic stagnated on Dover Point Road.
Dover Point.
So, and actually traffic dipped. It peaked and came down and then kind of stagnated. I also will tell you...
study on 125.
Yeah, no, we haven't. You know, 120, you look at 125, what's along 125? There's a lot of businesses.
There's a lot of businesses, yeah. There's also a lot of traffic.
Yeah, but if the traffic wasn't there, the businesses wouldn't be there, or vice versa. You know, so
True.
it's, and actually I think the businesses want the traffic there. But, so anyways, so, you know, we realize our lowest volumes in February, and then traffic is much higher in the summertime, 40% higher. This is just an interesting graphic, I should say a chart that shows our traffic and revenue. And what's interesting is tolls are a user-based system. Travelers that use that road, they pay for the road. You look at Hampton Main Line, 72% of the revenue at that location is out of state. Those are people that are using that road but wouldn't be paying if there wasn't a toll on that road. Because they may be getting gas in Massachusetts, they may be getting gas in Maine, they may be getting gas in New Hampshire, but I think the vast majority, because that's such a short section, the road is 16 miles, the vast majority would have been gassing up before they traveled through New Hampshire. So those users that are using that facility, just passing through, you know, because it is a toll there, they're paying. And we've been able to build a first-class facility at that location to support that traffic and support that recreational activity. The rest of the system, you can see, it's primarily being used by the New Hampshire travelers. There's not as much out-of-state revenue. Excuse me. Cell phones buzzing. So, in terms of how much revenue comes into the system that's out of state, overall, 46% of the revenue, $54 million in fiscal year 11, was out of state revenue that came into the system that the users of the turnpike system that were out of state were paying for the that transportation element. How is that toll revenue spent? You know, here's a graphic kind of breaks it out. We have to pay debt service. Fiscal year 11, we had about $34 million in debt service that we were paying on the $360 million of outstanding bonds. Those bonds we use to build capital projects, such as Newington Dover right now. That's bonded revenue. The Rochester project, those are bonds that are paying for that work. If we had to do pay-as-you-go, we would never get the projects built in the time frame that we're getting them built. State police, so we pay them to enforce, do the enforcement on the toll road turnpike system. R&R, we spent we spent $14.3 million in fiscal year 11. R&R is really it's a bond covenant requirement that we have to spend a certain percentage of money to make sure that the system is kept in good condition. And I have a slide that talks about that program, but that's paving, guardrail work, drainage work, signing work, bridge work, minor bridge work, so on.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
I think we should probably just elaborate. The R&R, excuse me, means that you're not spending $14 million on rest and relaxation.
No, we're spending $14 million on renewal and replacement work.
Thank you.
So it's preservation, maintenance type of work. That actually, some people will think, well, that's capital work, you're paving, that's capital, but from the turnpike standpoint, it's R&R, it's routine maintenance work.
That's for attendance.
Then there's road maintenance, toll collection, and then kind of whatever the surplus is at the end of the year goes into the capital program. Or in this case here, for the last few years, it's also gone into the I-95 acquisition that was completed. Because we had bond proceeds, we secured $150 million of bonds in 2009. So there was bond proceeds that paid for capital work in fiscal year 11. Actually, there was an additional, over and above the 28 million, there was an additional 47 million in capital that was paid in 11 out of the 09 bond proceeds. So here's the current program. Legislatively, it's a $565 million authorized program. It was initiated in 2007 after a toll increase. That toll increase provided enough of the added revenue to support the bonding that was needed to support that capital program. Includes 13 projects, addresses 19 red list bridges. The other 2 red list bridges, I spoke of 21 before, the other 2 are being addressed as part of R&R or normal maintenance efforts. Focused on safety and congestion. What is important to note is that the program was amended in 09. Initially, it was a $420 million program. It was amended in 09 as part of House Bill 391 to authorize additional projects in Dover, from the Newington-Dover area, open road tolling on the main lines at Hampton, Hookston, and Bedford. So, although those projects were authorized, additional revenue was not secured at that time. So that's an important point that I want to stress, that although the legislation authorized those projects and we're able to move forward, we're not able to move forward until the revenue's in place. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. We do have a monthly status report that is posted online. It looks something like this. It has each sheet, there's a sheet in there that kind of highlights, provides highlights for each project and the status. So certainly the Newington-Dover project is there. All the projects that are listed, that are part of the capital program are listed there. Also, as part of the report, and I don't have it in my presentation here, but as part of the report, there's a cash flow element. This is actually one from 08 that listed the program at that time and showed $420 million program. But if you go online, and there's their address, there's actually what shows our cash flow. And you can, this graphic kind of shows where we're at today, and based on the construction expenditures, where we're going to be. And this fall, we need to secure another $120 million of bonds to secure the current, to support the current capital work. So certainly, if anyone's interested, that's online. You can view that document. Really, at the end of the second quarter in fiscal year 12, we've expended $183 million for capital work on the system. 16 construction projects are either underway or completed, which total $242 million. All the project expenditures that are expected in 2013 through 2024 are in the draft, are in the 10-year plan, the draft 10-year plan. This is kind of a summary, and I'm not going to really focus on this because I have, well, I'll focus on this and then go through the other slides quickly. On the Central Turnpike, Merrimack River Bridge project, $16 million project, has already been completed. Bedford US Route 3 bridge replacement, that's a design build project underway. Bow Concord, we had 4 bridges that we're addressing as part of the program, a $25 million project. One bridge has been completed, another one is 2 other bridges are underway, there's one more to go with that one. Manchester Milliard bridges, they're in the final design stage. Blackbrook rehab has been deferred because we kind of addressed that in more of a, at a smaller scale, so we feel like we can defer that. Hookston Open Road Tolling is moving forward. That project was awarded and that construction has started. And then Bedford Open Road Tolling, that's one of the ones that are unfunded. Legislature authorized it, but it's unfunded. On the Spalding, Rochester work, you see it probably firsthand. It's 85 to 90% complete. I think it's probably almost a year ahead of schedule. So that work is moving along very nicely. And I think for the most part, the majority of the work is going to be done at the end of this year. $129 million project. Newington Dover, and I'll talk about this more specifically, but as you know, the Little Bay Bridge project, that was a $50 million contract. That was led, it's well underway. We're advertising the Newington End, which is another $54 million contract in May. And then we're also, it's also funded, and we're planning to advertise in the fall of 13, is the rehab of the existing Little Bay bridges. So all that's left, all that will be left, is the Dover End and the General Sullivan rehabilitation, which is estimated to be $73 million. Those are unfunded, but I'll talk about the schedule. We're planning to make sure the project is progressed without delay. That's the goal there. And then on the Blue Star, we have some other projects that, basically are either underway or have been completed.
Sam?
Excuse me, sir.
Sure.
Could you explain the acronym FEET and LBB?
FEET is Effie Everett Turnpike. LBB is Little Bay Bridge.
Could you
Sure.
tell me something, other than convenience, and I love the convenience of the Hampton toll gate, what is the advantage of open roll tolling? Is that money loser, or?
I have a slide on that, and
Okay.
that will speak to that if you can wait a few minutes.
Thank you.
And this is just a more detailed summary, and I'm sure it's in the package that you have. So I'll just focus on the Spalding and not get into the other ones in detail. Rochester, like I mentioned, it's 85% complete. We had 6 construction contracts. 2 have been fully completed. We fully expect that, I think although the completion was targeted for the fall of 2013, I think the majority of the work is going to be completed this year, almost 1 year ahead of schedule. There may only be some cleanup work, maybe final paving the next year. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be dependent on how much they progress this year, but that project is moving along very well. The total cost of that project was $140 million, and that was all funded out of the Turnpike program. Newington Dover, I mean, here it's an interesting photo here, how congested the area is, but the contractor is making excellent progress there. I was just at that location earlier this week, and they erected the center span. They hoisted that in place. So all the steel is pretty much in place it's for a portion of that new bridge. Once they erect the deck panels, they're going to be and pour the concrete. They'll have that section finished, and then they'll remove their trussel out of the water, and they'll build the rest of it. The new Little Bay Bridge will be 15 feet away from the General Sullivan Bridge when it's done. So they are doing that in phases, and they're moving, very well. But it's such a tight space that they really have to do it in phases. Yes, sir.
If I could, yeah. That photo of the Little Bay Bridge. Now you say the Newington end has yet to be started. Are you talking about this end of that new section of bridge, or are you talking about something else?
When I say the Newington end, what I mean is exit 3, exit 4, the whole Newington side of the project.
I got you. Okay.
So when you look at, and I'll talk about this, when you look at your 11 by 17, the Newington end is the Newington end is all that green, which is going to really bring the main lines into the meeting area, bring them together, rebuild exit 3, rebuild the new ramps at exit 4. So that $50 million project is all that work on the Newington side.
Now, when you talk about the General Sullivan Bridge, the old bridge that's in the photo there, you're talking about rehabbing that. That's not for automobile traffic.
No,
it's foot traffic. whatever.
It's going to be for foot recreational bike traffic.
Okay.
Right? That's a major connection for those,